Thank you for calling UP College Open University. The person you're trying to reach is unavailable right now. For any questions, you may dial 0 and an operator will be with you shortly.
Hey everyone, and welcome to As You Can Hear, where we will be experimenting on how properly directed voice execution in advertising is significant in listener engagement. Why do this, you ask? I'll be honest. I'm a voice artist here in the Philippines, and I've had my fair share of doing voiceovers in commercials. But how sure am I that my performance was actually any effective to an audience? How sure are any voice artists in general that their delivery made an impact to a listener at all? That gave me an idea. Why not try and experiment on that? Before we get into that, let's you and me have a talk. The voice plays an important role in communicating for us humans, and especially in the world of advertising and marketing. However, not all voices are used for advertising. Is it because one's voice is
too high?
Too low?
Or is it all about the execution of the voice? Different kinds of voice vary per advertisement. The execution of these voices also differ from one advertisement to another to really grasp the listener's interest. But before we get any deeper, here's a short history of voice in media and its arrival in the Philippines. However, there's a dearth in literature when it comes to its history, so I tried my best to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Here's a short history about how voice started in media. Voice acting has been around since the 1900s. Reginald Fessenden recorded the first voiceover, and guess what? It was a weather report. One of the earliest known voiceovers was the 1928 short film Steamboat Willie. Radio personality Mel Blanc rose to fame in the 1930s and was dubbed as the man with 1,000 voices. Now let's talk about how voice in advertising arrived in the Philippines. Telegraph lines were set up as early as 1867 by the Royal Telegraph Corps by Spain. Radio broadcasting then began in the 1920s. A particular Mrs. Redgrave sent a test broadcast in 1922 at Nichols Air Base. Henry Herman first conducted radio broadcasting experiments around June 1922. He eventually used radio to advertise his own stores. Radio stations were then established. They were owned by department stores. Advertising agencies opened in the mid-1930s. Radio broadcasting was flourishing until World War II broke out. During the Japanese occupancy, all radio stations were forced to shut down, except for KZRH, which they used as their official mouthpiece, and renamed PIAM. In 1941, Philippine radio stations were destroyed because of the arrival of the Japanese. A few years later, after the liberation of Manila, the Philippine Broadcast Service was established. In the mid-1950s, the use of Tagalog in radio programming flourished. However, during the martial law era, Marcos ordered the Press Secretary and Secretary of National Defense to seize and take over all privately owned mass media outlets. A year after martial law was implemented, the kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas was established. And the rest was history. Radio still continues to be a dominant form of mass media in the Philippines. More than 90% of radio stations are commercial. Why? It is consumer-driven. A big portion of these radio stations are funded through advertisements. Given its past, voice and advertising will always be an ever-evolving industry. Who would have known that voice advertising in the Philippines originated that way? It only shows that advertising has played a significant role, especially in our commerce. It is a marketing communication used to promote services and products from merchants to buyers. Commercial ads that use voices seek to generate increased sales or engagement of their products. These kinds of advertisements use people's voices to make it more appealing and engaging, and more effective as an ad to listeners. Take commercials you hear on the radio, for example.
Make a meaty sweet breakfast with Ladies' Choice ham spread.
That was pretty great, wasn't it? According to Philippine radio statistics, these commercials reach 85% of Filipino households. In 2012 alone, the second largest amount of spending on advertising was for radio commercials. In 2013, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, radio became the second most used media. And in 2016, statistics show that 65.6% of Filipinos listen to the radio. Listener engagement is very important when it comes to radio advertising and marketing, especially since advertisers see radio as the most effective strategy in reaching customers. A well-known director in the voice industry, Mr. Tony Hertz, mentioned in his book how listeners are drawn to the fact that there is a DJ in the room, car, or workplace. We live increasingly isolated lives, and radio is an easy and effective way of managing solitude. That makes a lot of sense, which is why the voice industry keeps on developing and improving, because radio is still the most pervasive media in the Philippines. The use of voice in advertisements is so versatile because, let's face it, it's the most basic yet effective way to communicate. And since communication is key, advertisements that use voices require the voices to have a certain standard. Take a look at some of these advertisements and observe the voices.
Discover extraordinary, the new KFC Extra Crispy Chicken.
Buti na lang, marunong akong pumili.
This Christmas, celebrate with a family with a KFC Christmas Bucket Feast.
Nutrition presents the mighty multivitamins.
Fight, vitamins, we're here to make your day. Fight, vitamins, helps you work, eat and play.
Here to give you energy, flex those muscles with me.
CGF!
Get up and grow, yeah, that's my thing.
And for your brain, it's taurine.
ABDE! We'll keep you on the go, we'll make you feel good from head to toe.
Don't forget about me, vitamin C. Watch me jump and sway as I keep coughs and colds away.
Fruits and veggies, meat and dairy, oh so yummy, perfect for your tummy. Fight, vitamins, we're here to make your day. Fight, vitamins, helps you work, eat and play.
Tune in next time for more Nutrition. Brought to you by Propan TLC, tamang lusog for children.
As you can hear, there were various voice executions being exhibited. But are these voices done just willy-nilly? What do you think? Well, not exactly. You see, being a voice artist needs either or both talent and skill. It can be a pretty tedious performance as well. And for advertising and marketing, a properly directed and executed voice is most respected in the industry. This is to ensure that the voiced advertisement will be effective to those within earshot, thus properly marketing the product or service. Don't believe me? Well, I took the liberty to interview a few well-known and experienced voice artists, directors, sound engineers, and voice casters to further understand the importance of how properly directed and executed voice is important in advertising. Without further ado, meet...
Hi, I'm Alex Ikuili.
Hi, my name is Direct Brian Ligsay.
My name is Lilibeth Bonus, but people in the industry call me Bon Bonus. Navarro.
My name is Tony Hertz.
I'm a voice actor and also a dubbing director for other networks.
I am a professional voice actor, writer, translator, director, the executive director of the Mothership Recording Studios.
For 7 years, to be exact, I was a voice caster with Hit Productions.
I've been in the industry since 2001. I applied as an audio engineer.
I'm a radio and audio specialist coming from an advertising agency. I was a creative director for most of my agencies, and then I left the agency to start my own radio specialist company because I've always been passionate about radio. And then after a couple of years, I decided it was time to go back into making radio commercials again.
Let's get to know why they think voice in advertising is important.
Okay, when you say significance, we talk about the importance ng kahalagahan niya. Malaki.
The voice is the driving force.
When I was a kid, families would gather around the radio and listen together in the same way that they used to gather around the TV and listen together. They don't do that anymore. All media consumption is individual.
The emphasis would always be on the product that's clear, the main message of each commercial.
So what we know about radio, it is listened to by one person at a time, usually at a fairly close distance, in a car, for example. Or these days, and I happen to know something like more than 30% of all radio listening in the Philippines is done on mobile devices. So it's right in your ear.
When ad agencies would create their own ads, merong unknown brand or product, gagawa nila yun ng commercial na pwede nilang gamitin lahat ng creative powers nila. And they would air it.
Listening to radio commercials back then, and even to a certain extent now, you would get the impression that the radio was on a pole in the middle of a square with an audience of 300 people around it because somebody is broadcasting big messages rather than intimate personal messages right in your ear.
We heard it's saying hard sell. Madalas nadidinig natin pag advertising, we have to deliver a certain line ng hard sell because we're selling something, trying to promote something. In that way, we want the audience to respond immediately, and the only way to do that is to make it a hard sell advertisement. Mahalaga ang boses dahil siya yung nagbibigay ng kulay, siya yung pumoporma.
In the advertising world, image is everything, right? So when you have a product being endorsed by a voice that people can relate to, that people can think about and make them wonder, it attracts more potential customers to, consume or maybe buy the product. And it generally also affects adversely if you choose the wrong voice to endorse a product or a service. That's why you need professionals to do the job. And it gives a better image of the product or service. And voices actually, even though nowadays people are thinking of automating things, will never fade away. It is probably the only sole element of an advertising product or campaign that will never fade away.
Lagi natin isipin ang advertising ay hindi lang naman dapat visual, dapat audio din siya. Hindi lang siya dapat nakikita, dapat nararamdaman din siya.
You need that element of the voice to be there to really get in touch with the people you're trying to sell to. And that's it.
As you can hear from the interviewees, they've discussed the significance of voice in advertising. You'll notice that their responses vary from one another. This is because they came from different backgrounds and specialize in different fields in the voice industry. However, one thing seems to be true, that the voice is a powerful tool in advertising. Using voices allow the audience to get a glimpse of a product without having to see or feel it just yet. Voice alone can generate all the emotions an advertisement would want to convey, and this is why voice artistry is a craft on its own. But how does one know if voice in a commercial is done well?
If you want to throw your lines in selling a certain product, make it more believable.
Should be delivered naturally.
Without the voice acting of transforming to like speaking normally, hindi mo siya ma-appreciate if they put a normal voice.
Yung paggamit ng boses ay nangangahulugan din ng pagbibigay ng kulay dun sa mga salita na nakapaloob dun sa advertising brief or dun sa dialogue.
The text is everything. You've got to make the script work. The biggest obstacle is having to read crap. And try and make it convincing. And I think part of the responsibility here is also on the talent to ask questions so you can do a better job. The really good salespeople are humans, telling the truth under imaginary circumstances. Because when we're watching something, whatever series, or even for that matter, even one of the telenovelas, at that moment when you find yourself sympathizing with the person on the screen, if you find yourself sympathizing, it means that you believe. You've been sucked into that story. And it's the same thing with a commercial. If you believe and if you have some sympathy with the character who is talking, then you're hooked.
It also comes with good briefing na pag nakuha ng talent, ma-deliver niya ng maayos yung copy ng commercial mo.
Kailangan pa mabigat, magaan, yung pagkakadeliver mo ng linya. In terms of speed, kailangan ba mabilis o mabagal yung pagkakadeliver mo ng linya para ang dumating sa audience na nakikinig o nanonood ay kaigaya-gaya at maintindihan nila. Mahalaga yung boses, mahalaga yung pagka-characterize ng boses sa pagbebenta ng kahit anong produkto. And in this issue, we want to tackle it and we want to give importance kung ano yung kahalagahan o significance ng boses o yung pagporte ng salita at sounds sa pagbebenta ng produkto.
It really depends a lot on the branding of the ad. Given the right talent and the right direction or the right briefing, magagawa ng tama at maganda naman yung delivery. If the voiceover is done right, it means the message is delivered well. So, hindi lang siya malinaw. Pag pinarinig mo siya sa isang tao na walang alam tungkol dun sa product or campaign, maintindihan niya kung tungkol saan yung campaign. Na-meet yung creative brief. Pag narinig mo yung voice niya, makikita mo, imagine mo kung ano yung itsura nung tao, if it's a character. Or, tawag dito, madadala nung announcer yung brand. If it's a premium brand or if it's a brand for the masses.
It's always important that you give feedback. First is always to brief the talent. As director of the voice talent, should always know the message you'd want the audience to get. Should get the script first, understand the script, what the client wants, what the creative wants, and then you give the briefing to the talent. That's the first. Second would be feedback. Once you've given a direction, then the talents would say their lines. If they're going off, well, not exactly off script, but off the message of the commercial, that's when you give your feedback. The emphasis would always be on the description of the product, if it's clear, just during the freight part. The freight part, by the way, is part of the commercial where the product is described, what the product is all about. So that is the most important part of the commercial because
the biggest decisions we make in our lives are made with our hearts and our guts and rationalized with our brains. So what I say, one of the things I say to actors is, let me hear you think. The listener will feel your hesitation. The listener will feel that you have thought before answering. And that sense of, he's just made that up, he just does not know what he's going to say next, I find really, really important, really powerful, actually.
And that's what we do as voice actors. We try to give the best impression of a product or a service, and we turn out to be the #1 salesperson of any product or service.
Now we've heard how distinguished people in the voice industry described proper delivery. As you can hear, they all emphasized how proper delivery captures specific emotions. These emotions are the key in unlocking the sympathy of the consumers. They all agreed that the goal is to first make the audience believe in the brand or company, and then persuade the audience to avail of the products. The voice artists are not just mere talents anymore. Rather, they are the ones carrying responsibility of marketing various products and, as stated, to be the #1 salesperson. We are now able to see the power of voice in advertising, and it is really a force to be reckoned with despite the advancements in technology in the recent years. Human voice is incomparable, as each and every one of us possesses a unique voice of our own. Well, there you have it. You've heard it from the masters. Still not convinced? That's okay. There's still so much to learn. But I bet you're thinking what I'm thinking. How do these executions and standard of voices in advertisements actually affect those who listen? Not all voices are the same, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all industry, especially for those commercials that require human voice. Some commercials require simple and casual vocal execution, while others may require a more complex and emotion-filled execution to really capture the listener's attention. There are various useful vocal executions because it is an ever-evolving craft. But today, let's focus on the basic 3 executions that complement each other so well. We'll start with pacing. What is pacing?
This Christmas, Give exclusively designed packs by Celine and other celebrity artists.
Gusto ko lahat malinis. Pero itong bareta, sa pimples, puro bola!
As you can hear, the commercial was done with proper pacing. It shows the balance between the use of voice and the rest of voice. There was clarity and adds a human element to the ad. This is especially helpful in provoking attachment from the listener so they can keep their attention on the commercial. Another good one is intonation, which is the use of pitch, timing, and loudness to convey meaning across utterances. It has a communicative function as it breaks the speech into chunks, clarifies the prominent syllables in a sentence, and provides emphasis. This allows us to be globally understood because we are able to understand each other.
Eyeshadow for the eyes, natural. Lipstick for the lips, natural. Pressed powder for the face, natural. Soap for the body, natural.
What can you do with a bunch of squares and triangles? Play with a rabbit. Hop in a fighter plane. Launch a rocket.
As you can hear, the voice artist really emphasizes the product well and made it clear what was being advertised. Remember what Mr. Dave Navarro mentioned earlier, which was the freight part? And lastly, modulation. Modulation is the raising and the lowering of the voice and the fine-tuning of the pitch and tone of voice. This is very useful as it gives variety to the types of voices one owns and can make. The ability to modulate can be either a talent or a skill, but nonetheless, makes a significant impact to the listener.
Enfagrow A+4 helps strengthen your child's immunity against respiratory infections.
Superstay Ink Crayon by Maybelline New York. An 8-hour no-fade matte formula. Sharpened to a precise tip for super easy application. Superstay Ink Crayon, only 299 pesos.
Been doing the Watson's in-house radio for 5 years now. It goes something like, "Hey shoppers! Avail of our 10% discount when you buy any of our skincare items. Switch and save with Watson's Generics. Good news, Alphamart shoppers! Patuloy po ang ating promo. A friendly reminder from Alphamart, always here for you."
As you can hear, the voice artists' voices weren't their normal speaking voices. They catered their voices to match the product and the atmosphere of the advertisement. Now, we can finally ask, how effective is voice in advertising? Mr. Brian Ligsay mentioned earlier that in advertising, image is everything. It is true that advertising is 100% visual, and Ms. Bon Bonus and Mr. Tony Hertz discussed the importance of creating the imagery inside the listener's head, that even without any tactile or visual representation present, the listener's imagination is activated. But this can only be achieved through proper vocal direction and execution. I wanted to further understand and capture this kind of listener engagement toward properly directed and executed voice in advertising, which is why I've asked 7 of my favorite voice artists to help me out and record a bunch of commercials. They each had one script, but they recorded it twice. The first recording was properly directed and executed. The second? Not so much. I gave them some crazy instructions and told them to have fun with it however they wanted.
So here we are today at Mothership Recording Studios, and we're going to start recording 2 deliveries per script for every voice artist. Let's say hi to the voice artists. So here's the production area where we will start recording the voice artists. And inside we will find Director Brian Ligsay, one of the most well-known directors in the voice industry.
Hello everyone.
Ang kanyang homework. Tay, halika na, uwi na tayo. Gumawa daw.
Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope to see you at the Mothership Recording Studios!
Next, I needed some guinea pigs. I was able to gather 10 of my friends who had little to no idea what they were getting into, except for the fact that they were doing a reaction video. I briefed them shortly, letting them know that they are going to be listening to 7 commercials, each done twice, and they had to choose which one they preferred from each commercial. I also interviewed them right after, just so I could get some input from people who aren't a part of the voice industry. Let's take a look.
Sobrang galing sobra. Hindi ko alam paano niya nagagawa yun. Sobrang galing sobra, wala akong masabi. Galing talaga. I mean, siguro ito yung pinakamaganda na narinig ko. Yung boses na to. Yung galing.
100 years ago,
make it a Bud Light.
Bonggang epekto, di ba mga mamshi?
Think of it as your own personal walk-in kitchen.
Comfort that's out of this world.
The number to call is 555-5555.
Sige, sabay natin tingnan.
Alright, you ready to start? So, ang gagawin natin is...
Naku, maraming nagtatanong niyan, doktora. Doktora, ano naman po yung sinasabi na kailangan ng tiyan ng good bacteria para ito'y maging healthy? Pag mas healthy ang tiyan, mas na-absorb ang nutrients. May digestive comfort at maganda ang growth at development. Bonggang epekto, di ba mga mamshi? Mars, happy tayo dyan, appear! Naku, maraming nagtatanong niyan, doktora. Doktora, ano naman po sinasabi? Kailangan ng tiyan ng good bacteria para ito'y maging healthy. Pag mas healthy ang tiyan, mas na-absorb ang nutrients. May digestive comfort at maganda ang growth. Bonggang epekto, di ba mga mamshi? Oh, Mars, happy tayo dyan, appear! I have to go!
I like voice one better kasi parang mas formal siya. I can tell na mas clear, mas makakonvince ka talaga kasi parang mas knowledgeable yung person tungkol dun sa sinasabi. It's very, the way she said it, parang ang formal.
It sounds so natural in a way that I feel like she's talking to me.
Maayos nga i-pronounce yung mga words. I really like the first one because it's like very vivo and like, yeah, friendly sounding. Unlike the second one, medyo parang nagsistutter siya in a way and hindi ko siya nagustuhan.
Parang napiyok siya na parang practice lang yung nangyari. Hindi siya maayos pakinggan.
Hindi ko mag-gets kung ano ba talagang parang dinideliver na message to the people. It was too fast. I feel like it's important na may diction pa rin. Like you have to finish everything.
Gabi na at nasa bahay tayo ng isang pamilya. Inaayos ni tatay ang kanyang mga libro.
Tay, halika na. Uwi na tayo. Gumawa daw ng aras kaldo si Lola eh.
Anak, maya-maya na. Maipit tayo sa traffic eh.
Kakainis naman tong traffic na to eh. Hindi naman ganyang ka-traffic nung araw eh. 6:00 nasa bahay na kami. Ano po bang nangyari? Maraming lumilipat dito sa atin kaya ayun. Punong-puno na ang mga daan. Bakit hindi nila gawan ng paraan?
Anak, hindi naman nangyayari yun basta-basta. Yung kailangan mong malaman kung gaano kadaming taong lumilipat sa isang lugar. Tapos, pag-aaralan pa ang population data.
Ay, parang 2020 census. Oo, alam nyo, kada 10 taon, ang census ay binibilang lahat ng mga tao dito sa bansang to. Tapos, ginagamit yung population data na yun para sa pagbibigay ng pondo sa mga daan. Pinag-aaralan namin sa eskwelahan to. Sinagot nyo na ba?
Saka ako nagagawin yan. Darating na ang 2020 census. Ihugis ang inyong kinabukasan. Simula dito sa 2020census.gov.
Tay, halika na, uwi na tayo. Gumawa daw ng aras kaldo si Lola. Anak, maya-maya na. Maybe tayo sa traffic. Kakainis naman tong traffic na to, no? Ano ba nangyari? Lahat ng mga bagong bahay. Maraming taong lumipat dito sa atin, kaya yun. Ba't di nila gawa ng paraan? Anak, hindi naman nangyayari yun basta. Una, kailangan mo muna malaman kung gaano kadaming tao ang lumilipat sa isang lugar. Ay, parang 2020 census. Pinag-aaralan namin sa eskwelahan to. Sinagot niya na ba? Saka ako nagagawin yan. I-email ko na lang.
Pag-aralan pa natin ang census sa 2020census.gov. Mag-log on ka na at ipapakita ko po sa inyo dahil may oras pa naman.
It's a hard one actually because
parang parehas siya eh.
Medyo mahirapan ako sa difference. Pero parang mas yung first pa lang. They're actually really similar. Pero yung first pa rin ang pipiliin.
Or mas clear, mas distinct yung pagkaiba ng boses nila when it came to the first part compared to the second part.
Yung daddy dun sa 4, parang magkapareho na yung boses ng anak tsaka yung dad. So parang ganyan.
Nagbago lang yung paano niya i-pronounce yung mga word.
Mas casual, parang
Mas medyo bata pa yung voice. Kasi yung 4, parang tumanda na siya.
I mean, bagay yung 4 sa parang pang school eh. Eh parang pag si school, yun yung mas prefer na mga bata or mga kabataan kasi mas madali siyang intindihan.
I'm just a regular guy who wants the same thing everyone else wants. Food, family, shelter, friends, and plenty of ice-cold bud. Just not necessarily in that order. Did I ever tell you about that time I was panning at Copperhead Creek? Well, it was the luckiest day of my life, and it had nothing to do with all the gold I found. You see, something awful strange nudged my toe, and when I reached down to see what it was, well, you better believe I was mystified. I reckoned I was the richest man that ever was. Bud Light. The great taste won't fill you up and never lets you down. Look, I'm just a regular guy who wants the same thing everyone else wants. I want food, family, I don't know about family, shelter, friends, and plenty of ice-cold bud. Just not necessarily in that order. Did I ever tell you about that time I was panning at I think it was Copperhead Creek? Well, it was the luckiest day of my life. Alright? And it had nothing to do with all the fucking gold I found. You see, something awful strange nudged my toe, and when I reached down to see what it was, well, you better believe I was mystified. I reckoned I was the richest man that ever was. Bud Light. The great taste won't fill you up and never lets you down. Make it a Bud Light.
I prefer the first one. The first one.
I imagine like Bud Light, like a sexy man, sexy, confident man, you know. Mas mas professional.
Mas maayos siya magsalita.
Like he knows what he's saying, he's delivering it nice. Low-key turn on. Low-key turn on. So like, sexy man, Bud Light. Actually, they're both good naman, but I think mas na-feel ko yung pag-explain niya dun sa 6.
Sa 6, wala kang masasabi.
Hindi siya persuasive in a way. So parang nakaka-OA na yung pag-explain niya or pag-pronounce ng mga words niya.
Parang ano pa lang siya, nag-practice lang siya ng mga words. If it comes to like the natural sense ng had na yun, I definitely go for the latter one.
So it's 2 in the morning, and you're starving. Nothing in the fridge, and nothing in the cupboards. You don't even have dog biscuits hanging around. You think about cooking, but then you remember the 3-alarm fire you started last time you tried using the stove. Well, check out 7-Eleven. There's gotta be one right near you. They have everything from burgers to tacos. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 7-Eleven. Think of it as your own personal walk-in kitchen. So it's 2 in the morning. And you're starving. Nothing in the fridge and nothing in the cupboards. You don't even have dog biscuits hanging around. You think about cooking, but then you remember the 3-alarm fire you started last time you tried using the stove. Well, check out 7-Eleven. There's gotta be one right near ya. They have everything from burgers to tacos. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 7-Eleven. Think of it as your own personal walk-in kitchen.
I prefer the first one.
I don't know, so it's consistent. Yung sobrang professional mo sila. Pero kasi pag sa, yung meaning ng script, yung sinabi niya, parang mas nakaka-affect sa mga tao yung
first one is just like very inviting. I'm like, yeah, I could have said that. I'm gonna grab that taco.
Yung tone is relaxing, pakinggan.
the way na mag-endorse. Yun. Taray.
Hindi ko pinili 7 kasi wala, na-artehan lang ako dun sa
Definitely the delivery. Mas malinis.
Parang dito mas gusto ko yung second dito.
Really? Okay. Bakit?
Parang mas realistic siya ganun.
Nainis ako kasi ang tinis ng voice niya.
Mas prefer ko yung parang nag-story na yung girl.
Yung voice niya parang siyang magagalit sa akin. That's all I remember. And
ewan ko ba? Parang siya nakikipagkwentuhan sa tropa.
She's like a money bitch. Like,
gutom yata si ate.
Stop screaming at me at 3 a.m. Becky. Like, I wanna sleep.
Magaling.
Always wanted to get your MBA? What's the holdup? If it's tuition fees, let me tell you, do I have a deal for you? At Jared's MBA Institute, we've just slashed the entrance fee by 50%. That's right, it's now officially affordable to get your MBA. But you've got to do it now. Call before midnight to secure your space in our MBA program. It just takes one phone call, 1 year, and one heck of a lot of determination. Mention this and receive an additional 20% off at the campus bookstore. The number to call is 555-5555. See you this September. Hey! Always wanted to get your MBA? What's the holdup? If it's tuition fees, let me tell you, do I have a deal for you? At Jared's MBA Institute, we've just slashed the entrance fee by 50%. That's right, it's now officially affordable to get your MBA, but you've got to do it now. Call before midnight to secure your space in our MBA program. It just takes one phone call, 1 year, and one heck of a lot of determination. Mention this commercial and receive an additional 20% off at the campus bookstore. The number to call is 555-5555. See you this September.
parang yung second one kasi,
no, it's just like he's like a fresh guy. It's like he doesn't sound like went to med school. It's just all over the place. Like
it's just like he's just doing it the way he wants to.
Loud yung second. Parang ginagago na lang niya eh. Pa yung sasabihin niya eh.
Sobrang inconsistent nung tone at saka nung emotions. The first one, I like it. It's very, yung delivery niya okay siya. Hindi siya yung parang OA.
It's clear, I could understand his emotions. Like, mas compelling.
Like he was like a bit like a salesman selling me a product. Like he wanted to be again like very confident.
I find it more appealing than the second one.
Maganda yung 9 kasi parang nag-aano talaga siya express proper delivery. And I think it's conditioned na din for us to hear. When you hear that kind of ad, you know it's good to hear, you know.
So doon ako sa 9 kasi mas klaro.
Quezon City 1920. Here, 100 years ago. Quezon City 1920. Here, 100 years ago. Men of courage and vision. Quezon City 1920. Here, 100 years ago. Men of courage and vision founded Mothership Studios to help a community of struggling but worthy voice talent and singers achieve their dreams. They were driven by an impeccable code of trust and respect through the hard times and the good times. Today, Mothership Recording Studios keeps pace with evolving technologies while remaining grounded on integrity and prudence. That's how Mothership Recording Studios successfully partnered with 5 generations of loyal clients. Mothership Recording Studios, celebrating the past, embracing the future.
Quezon City 1920. Here, 100 years ago, men of courage and vision founded Mothership Recording Studios to help a community of struggling but worthy voiceovers and singers achieve their dreams. They were driven by an impeccable code of trust and respect through the hard times and the good times. Today, Mothership Recording Studios keeps pace with evolving technologies while remaining grounded on integrity and prudence. That's how Mothership Recording Studios successfully partnered with 5 generations of loyal clients. Mothership Recording Studios, celebrating the past, embracing the future.
Buzz Lightyear. Parang Buzz Lightyear ta. Wait lang. May speechless ako dun.
Oh, funny yung second.
Okay, that one's a tricky one. Because for me, it's in terms of like branding. It's like, how do you want to brand Mothership?
For me, the first one, very low ASMR kind of voice. So it's like, Mothership wants to be daddy. It's like a daddy kind of. It's a mature type of branding. And the second one is like a little more inviting. Kasi parang nagre-report siya si Mike Enriquez, ganon.
Yung hindi tugma yung kailangan niya sabihin dun sa voice na kailangan niya. Yung sa voice na ginagamit. Dinadaan siya sa pagka-enthusiastic, pero so didn't help. Para lang sa boxing ring ka. Parang hindi na masyadong like pasok yung pagka-enthusiastic.
Parang gusto ko sila both.
Sa akin, kung pwede ba both yung 11 and 12?
Nakaka-enjoy siya pakinggan. Kasi parang yung sounds ng voice niya parang ma-attract ka talaga sobrang.
Parang alam ko when I hear that voice, automatically, I was drawn into a theater.
Parang ako nasa cine and
parang sinehan. It was soothing to listen to.
His voice, I mean whoever did it, sobrang smooth.
And it's very smooth. Like, yung voice, parang pang MMK yung boss niya.
I don't know, it reminded me so much of yung sa Ayala Malls ba yun or something.
Naririnig ko lang sa SM ko.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Parang, alam ko, it sounded so much like that.
Parang calming, so I liked it better.
ay, ang ganda ng delivery niya.
Sobrang galing sobra. Hindi ko alam paano niya nagagawa yun. Sobrang galing sobra, wala akong masabi. Galing talaga. I mean, siguro ito yung pinamaganda na narinig ko. Yung boses na to. Yung galing. Shoutout sa'yo. Galing. First time ko kasi ito nakarinig ako ng ganitong actual
Mothership and Ion Sanitary Pads. Mothership and Ion Sanitary Pads ay nagbibigay confidence during the special time of the month. Meron siyang 8 layers of protection. Ang kaniyang premium cottony soft surface ay makatutulong magbigay ng maximum comfort and freshness. Meron ding side leak guards na nakaka-prevent ng leakage. At soft air-laid paper na nagbibigay ng freshness at softness. Mothership and Ion Sanitary Pads. Comfort that's out of this world. Also available, Mothership and Ion Panty Liner. Mothership and Ion Sanitary Pads ay nagbibigay confidence during the special time of the month. Wait lang. Isa pa dong. Aray ko dong. Wag naman dyan banda dong masakit. Konti to the lip. No. Yung lip dodong lip. Kaliwa. Ay, Diyos ko, Lord. Kaya natin to. Sige. Ang kaniyang premium cottony soft surface ay makatutulong magbigay ng maximum comfort in freshness. Meron ding side leg guards. Meron ding side leg guard na nakaka-prevent ng leakage. I don't. Sige pa. Sige, okay lang. Go pa. Dong, okay. Ay, oh, Diyos ko, Lord. Oh my God. Mothership and Ion Sanitary Pads. Come
Maganda yung 13, maganda yung ano niya. Maganda yung pagka-advertise niya doon sa panty liner ba yan?
Nauso na sa mga ads yung pagiging konyo. And for some reason, na-enjoy ko yung pagiging konyo ng ad na yun. Kasi it's very detailed. It's straightforward. Walang kung ano-anong effects or what.
Mas clear yung sinasabi niya.
Mas understandable talaga yung first.
Was she having sex in the second one? Oh my god, I don't even know what that was.
Yung isa, sana natapos siya. Pang nanganganak na yung babae dahil sa pag-pronounce na. So, ang weird.
Like sa totoo lang, mas nakatch yung attention ko. Ang daming naganap.
Tunog. Bisayang katulong ng second.
Para siyang ibang probinsya.
Galing. Ma'am, what's happening?
So, how did you find the voiceovers?
I found each pair very different, and in some of the pairs it was evident what was directed properly.
Wow, they're very entertaining. Ang galing.
Interesting. At saka parang very, mapapansin mo talaga yung difference na yung dalawa. Ang galing nilang endorse yung mga foreigners na sabi.
Ang galing. Amazing.
Amazing! Galing nila iba-iba. Amazing voice.
I like it.
It was very entertaining. I wish I had that voice. Chart.
Ang galing nyo. Sobrang, lahat sila confident sa sarili. Ayun talaga yung doon. Sobrang confident nila sa isa't isa.
Because organized siya and maganda yung pronunciation.
It was very cool to see how the voices change depending on the product. Like, for example, like the Bud Light, like I said, it was like sexy and confident.
I keep remembering the one about 7-Eleven. Parang yung second girl talaga, parang pinapagalitan niya na ako eh. I couldn't cook at 3 a.m. in the morning or something. I can still remember it so vividly. Yeah.
Parang it really convinced me. Parang at talaga siya for MBA. Tapos nakinig talaga ako dun sa sinabi niya kasi some others yung hindi ko pinili. Parang medyo tinabad ako pakinggan. Parang I imagine myself din in a campus, gano'n. Tapos, parang commercial talaga. Like, it also made me picture a scenario in my head.
Pinaka-naalala ko na lang yung 14. Parang sobrang tinatry ko talaga mag-focus para intindihin ko ano yung sinasabi niya. Pero sobrang labo na talaga.
Kasi as a girl, syempre yun dapat talaga yung feel natin. So, yun. The first one. Kasi first, I like his voice. Second, I like how he portrayed yung advertisement na sinasabi niya. It was very, ang detailed niya, and not only that, nasabi nilang maayos lahat. Nung narinig ko, na parang nagulat ako kasi I never expected na ganun yung maririnig ko, na parang ang calming voice niya.
Ano yun? Yung sa mothership. Kasi, legit, pag yung pagkasabi niya ng mothership, ang sarap sabihin, Ayala mo. Okay. Yun talaga yung naalala ko.
The guy with the deep voice. But yeah, I like his way of delivery. Relaxed and it made me want to hear more.
Yung 14, tsaka yung number 5. Feeling, nakakaano siya. Yung alam mo yung feeling mo na ang ganda ng voice nila sa 10, kahit iba-iba yung language nila. Hindi siya yung nakakairita sa ears. May time kasi yung boses kasi minsan parang ang sakit sa tenga, pero maganda siya. Tsaka ang galing nila. Training din niya. Iba DJ, yun yung girl, tsaka yung boy. Ang galing na yun.
Number 11 ata yun, yung broadcast talaga parang Buzz Lightyear, gano'n. Yung talaga yung favorite ko eh. Tsaka yung yung isa, yung 13 din. 13, ayan. Shoutout sa mga idol. Idolo to, idolo.
Oh, definitely the sexy Bud Light. The sexy Bud Light. Yeah. I don't know, his voice is kind of hot, so it's just like, just somewhat alluring to that whole product. Oh, like I want to be with that kind of man or with that kind of alcohol beverage. So it just made me more inclined to maybe get the product.
Yes, of course, I think it's important. Especially kung walang visuals, important yung voice actors tsaka yung direction. Kasi dun talaga, parang yung pang-catch ng attention ng audience mo.
Like if it's an advertising, I think you have to be quick so that yung message na kailangan mong i-deliver is makuha agad. For example, pag ina-act mo lang, it's totally different. So I think being directed is really important.
Oo naman, syempre, para diba, kasi diba pag nag-advertise, dapat maganda talaga yung para mapakaya talaga yung mga tao. So, importante.
I guess definitely, of course, because there are certain voices or there are certain ways that fit different audiences. I guess the point of advertising is to reach all audiences, no matter what race, gender, I guess whatever label you put. So, I think that's important.
Na-feel ko parang gusto ko na rin mag-ganon eh. Parang nainganyo ako eh, no? Na-feel ko na mahirap yung ganon. Mahirap. Kailangan talagang parang yung iba nahihirapan din eh. Masaya din pakinggan, masaya.
Definitely. It will be more appealing to the listeners.
Because it says a lot about how you want to brand the product based on the voice, the tone, the pauses, where you put emphasis in the words, and how you take pauses as well. But yeah, directing matters a lot because if not, it's just gonna sound like shouting, like I said a while ago. You can't really know where to focus, like what are the focal points of the product or the message. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Liza. That's it.
Yay!
So, what you think? I had a lot of fun shooting that. But now, it's time to discuss and conclude. As you can hear, a lot of the interviewees chose the properly directed and executed voice, although a handful of them preferred the ones that weren't properly directed and executed. Their reasons were because they sounded more natural, like the voice was directly talking to them. They also mentioned that the commercials have to be complementary to the branding of the product being advertised. Remember my interviews earlier with Alex Agkawili, Bon Bonus, Dave Navarro, Tony Hertz, and Brian Ligsay? They all mentioned that sounding natural and intimate with the listener is the best way to go, that you have to tell the truth under imaginary circumstances, because we humans are the best salespeople. They also said that the script makes a lot of impact as well. So, what have we learned here today? We learned that aside from intonation, modulation, and pacing, the script and the briefing of the talent also become a huge part of the advertisement. They come as guides for the voice artist and how the voice should be executed. The direction and the execution make up how the voice in the advertisement will come out to be, and that is why it is very important that they be properly given and done. As you can hear, clearly, properly directed and properly executed voice in advertising is significant in listener engagement. Though it takes a lot of skill, talent, and confidence to become great in this craft, the most effective way to go is to capture the heart and the attention of the listeners. Now, I'm curious to know what you think. What do you hear?
sabi namin.
You like
Yeah.
ganun?
Okay. Yeah.
That's
thank
what boys do.
That's what I do. Like,
Yeah.
diba? Like it was the luckiest day of my life.
And I like when you put the
Yeah.
GG.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
I'm gonna have kids listen to this also.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. They should know what a boy is early on in
True.
life. So